And they did. I asked the Boston FBI to send me something that was proof this company had the terrorism connections they claimed it did, and the person there did. The PTEC employees kept going on. They kept drawing diagrams for 3 or 4 days until I was convinced this was something out of a Tom Clancy novel. If what indeed they were saying was true, this company needed to be stopped now before they did damage elsewhere. By the time they were finished drawing their diagrams, there were 17 names linked to terror. The glaring question was, why wasn't PTEC shut down? Was there an ongoing investigation? Did the FBI just not get it? Or was someone being protected? What do you do when the Boston FBI tells you, Indira, you are in a better position than I am to get real documentation on the situation with PTEC, so please keep doing what you're doing? Who do you call? I brought everything back, sat down, and thought about what it could mean, and I drew this diagram. I did know that PTEC had been in the FAA, and that was the most serious the most serious accusation of all. I called my friends in intelligence and law enforcement. I spoke to the New York Joint Terrorism Task Force and the New York Police Department Counterterrorism Unit from J.P. Morgan Chase's buildings. I laid out what I had to them, and I asked them if I was going insane or was there any truth to this. I asked them what I should do. The PTEC people said they were being followed, and they thought I was. One of them in particular told me that I was in danger, that they were in danger, and they were leaving the country with their kids. I asked the JTTF if they could arrange protection for us. They said yes, but later backed off. I went to the CIO, the Chief Information Officer of J.P. Morgan Chase, who turned my story over to the top 3 people who run the bank. Then he said the general auditor and his staff wanted to have a word with me. As a consolation prize, as I left his office, he told me the FBI at the highest level had validated the entire story as I laid it out. So what happened next is I went to the principal's office. The general auditor and his group of security people, the ones with the uniforms, grilled me as though I was a terrorist and did their intimidation routine. It was not as severe as Siebel went through, but it was pretty bad to the point where I left and contacted an investigative reporting team in Boston that the Boston FBI had used when they were looking for some terrorists right after 9/11. Just in case I should go missing, I wanted to have someone in the media to have a note of that. The name of the person there is Joe Bergantino, and he knows that I am speaking to you about this today. He is from the mainstream media, and I'm here to tell you that he went through hell and almost lost his career pushing this. There are some very good people in mainstream media. In any case, back to the general auditor who threatened me in no uncertain terms. I looked out the window to ground zero and back at him, and I asked him if this was about the Saudi money flowing through the bank. He turned his eyes away and said, "We've made a lot of mistakes." However, he told me that if I mentioned PTEC again, there would be no place for me in the bank. I had gone from being a person who could do no wrong, who was politically protected there, to someone who was about to get thrown out. My colleagues in the business commiserated but said, "Indira, everybody knew what PTEC was about." Well, I didn't, and sure as heck the 3,000 didn't. PTEC was eventually raided on December 6, 2002. And here's the story of how that happened. When I was thrown out of J.P. Morgan Chase at the ending of June, no one would have anything to do with me, but I was sure if we kept the investigation going, the good boys in the FBI would finally raid PTEC and all would be well, because what had happened is that the I-team had commissioned an investigation in Washington, D.C. to verify the story I laid out to them. Not only had it been verified, they called me in July and said everything I had put on the table was correct and it was worse than I had laid out. They were going to air the PTEC story nationwide as the lead story on the first-year anniversary of 9/11, with me in the story. There were many other networks that had gotten wind of it, and all the networks were going to run the PTEC story on the first-year anniversary. However, the White House got wind of the investigation, I have proof of that, and shut the story down in late August. Around the anniversary, the first-year anniversary, persons of interest were seen leaving PTEC and the country. No raids. By November, I wrote a report and threatened to send it to 10 defense agencies per week until something was done. Finally, PTEC was raided on a Friday in December. But when Ari Fleischer said there was nothing wrong with PTEC, I became persona non grata, blacklisted everywhere. We went to Senator Grassley's office, who created an FBI PTEC file. I was debriefed at a National Threat Assessment Center, the Secret Service, who, oh, by the way, was a client of PTEC, and they asked me whether PTEC was the same as Promise. I knew better than to answer that, and I told them, you have a copy of the software, you tell me. References to clandestines also in operation at PTEC have been made by a credible intelligence agency. Anytime we attempt to write the truth behind this, the people who are writing the truth are getting sued. The Kane Commission does not mention PTEC at all. I did a number of things in my research, and when I ran into the drugs, I was told that if I mentioned the money to the drugs around 9/11, that would be the end of me. That is the current threat that I'm under, and therefore I will speak out about the drugs at another forum. I did not expect the Keene Commission to go anywhere near the FBI and PTEC, but I hope all Americans will demand answers regarding the FBI and PTEC. I would like to leave you with this one question. Not only why is PTEC still operating, but why did Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Chertoff state that they cannot differentiate between terrorism, organized crime, and drug dealing? And is that the reason the Kane Commission will not make terrorism financing a priority in the future? Thank you.
Wait for a minute.